into our lives would be separated only by a see-through wrought iron fence. They were gracious enough to listen to our suggestions, but felt we had little or no chance to relocate or move any of those 18 two-story apartments from our backyards. More open public space is needed, especially on that left-hand side of the planned unit development. The SCC development planners gave the residents on the top side a 100-foot buffer, 100-foot buffer from their property to the two-story apartments. We as residents on the left-hand side are asking for the same buffer, a 100-foot buffer at least. We deserve the same consideration and respect as the residents on the top side of the property. Also, the residents surrounding the 32 acres do not have access to Saul's water and never have. If contamination to our or damage to our wells occurs, this PUD would force us out of our houses completely with no water. We all have water wells surrounding this. And the traffic, as it's been stated, from the apartments through one gate on the scenic loop will be a nightmare. That could be over 400 vehicles during a rush hour period. We are relying on the Planning and Zoning Committee and the City Council to protect our rights as citizens of the community who have paid taxes without question since we were annexed into the city. Helotes' quaint country community is in jeopardy. Don't let us lose our individuality by allowing this planned unit overdevelopment to go forward as presented. Thank you.
Next up, Amy Burrill. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did, actually. I mean, that rarely happens. Hi, good evening. My name is Amy Burrell. I'm here as a resident of Helotes Park Estates.
Sorry, could you just state your address as well?
Oh, sorry. My address is 1006 Lazy J Trail, right across the street over there. And this does directly affect me. I moved to Helotes almost 9 years ago, and I've seen a tremendous amount of development since I've moved here. And obviously, I'm going to see a lot more. So while I do object to this, I'm going to take a different tack. I oppose it, but I'm resigned to it. Believe me, I fought like heck. I know there's no profanity, but against that office building that went in there on Scenic Loop. So I don't believe that we can defeat this, although I do feel like it's an opposition to the character of our community, particularly being right across the street from Old Town. And I think we can all acknowledge that the corridor, the Scenic Loop corridor, is a magical place. You turn off of Bandera and you enter a different time, a different world. It really, you're not in the city anymore. It's an escape. And I see all of these places being zoned commercial, and I know that this is a march in a certain direction, but maybe we can work to make it more palatable for the citizens in the area. I agree with all of the concerns about traffic. Boy, do I, that's going to be a nightmare. The drainage, the trees, the density, the fact that it's a rental community. I can't really fathom that there's a need for that much rental inventory, but that nevertheless, what I'd really like to talk about today is something that was brought up in a previous city council previous city council session. One of the members brought up the subject of the fence. Like I said, when you turn on Scenic Loop, it's a whole different aesthetic, especially with the Marnock house right there. And sadly, the stables are gone, and continuing on down. I don't think that a wrought iron fence is fitting with the aesthetic of our community. If you go on past Gray Forest, down Scenic Loop, there are many very high-end subdivisions going on, multi-million-dollar homes. They all employ native stones in their entrances and privacy walls. I think if we want to stay classy, Helotes, we will also advocate for using native stone. I also believe that later on, because everything across the street is zoned commercial and we can all see where that's headed, I believe that the residents of this development will also appreciate the privacy that a native stone wall would afford them. I really think that this is such a special area. It's unique in the world with all the history and character. I think we should do our best to preserve it. That keeps us unique. That keeps us from turning into San Antonio or Leon Valley, or, it's an asset to our community to keep it that way. Additionally, I would like to say that I would advocate, I know there's going to be retail space in the front, Sprouts. I would really advocate for uniformity in signage. Really well-developed communities do that. Take, for instance, Sedona, Arizona, or other places like that, where they really work. Oh, I'm so sorry. Signage, uniform.
And lastly, Mr. Mayor, I believe you're up.
My name is Rich Whitehead, 10606 Asheville. I'm speaking today to bring up a point of remembrance back to the Walmart issue. What I do know about this community is nobody wanted a big box development in that property. It, of course, is zoned for a big box property. As a matter of fact, it does not require any variances whatsoever to build a big box in that. The fact that City Council and leadership at that point denied it is what resulted in $1.5 million lawsuit that the citizens of Helotes had to pay because they illegally stopped it. The point that I'm trying to make is that when I ran on a basis to make sure that we did not get involved with frivolous lawsuits. And one thing that we need to realize is that that is a commercial property that is purchased or under contract, and there is a plan for a big box development. And if everybody realized what was actually there that could not be stopped, you have no right to stop it. There is no variances required for that project. Everybody would be saying, how do you stop it? This is how we stop it. By working with the people to say what would be a better fit than a big box, huge parking lot, additional gas station, lights, signage. That would be terrible. Well, how do we stop it? Single family homes, mom and pop, mixed use development, and hence a PUD that would be specifically designed for this. And an ordinance has to be written specifically for this. So if this doesn't happen or something falls apart, something else can't come in because the ordinance is written exactly specifically for this. So my question here is really for people to hopefully understand that it's not whether this is something we want or don't want, but realize if we don't approve this, what will come. Plans are already there. Had them in my hands. I know what's coming if this doesn't. And I know that everybody would be extremely upset with what comes if this doesn't. And so I ask everybody to consider when you're looking at this, yes, there are traffic issues, yes, there are environmental issues, and yes, everybody has to adhere to all rules, regulations, ordinances, policies, and procedures set by not only the City of Helotes, TxDOT, TCEQ, State of Texas. All those things must be, and they must be held to those standards. But keep in mind, it is a choice between this or something that's worse. There is no choice to just turn it over to nature trails. Somebody's bought and invested a lot of money in that property, and somebody is free to buy that property and donate it if they want, but pending somebody buying it at a higher price than what is already out there and outbidding them, is a choice for nature trails is not our option and not in our ability to be able to inflict upon the current landowners. Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes open session at 7:25. Now, we'll move on to item number 6, discussion of an action on the minutes of the regular meeting of Planning and Zoning Commission dated September 6, 2022. Are there any questions, concerns, or edits? If not, I invite a motion.
Motion to approve as submitted.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes item 6. We'll move on to item number 7. Discussion of an action on a request by the Historical Society of Helotes for approval of 7 signs identifying historical buildings in Old Town Helotes Special District pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98, Zoning, Section 9872, Old Town Helotes Special District. And I'm not going to read all of these, but these refer to 7 different properties within the Old Town area. Does city staff have any further comments on this? Are there any representatives? Can you come up to speak on it?
I'd just like to
Please
briefly
state your
show
name.
you, I'm sorry, I'm Alan Holmes. I reside at 13306 Flying W Trail. I have some examples of the signage. Now, these are not the exact, what the signs are. These are just renditions of what the sign would look like. They are this size, they are this color, and I'll be more than happy to bring these up there and show them to you, if that's all right, sir.
Yeah, be fine. Thank you. Let's just start at the end. Thank you.
The signs are, as you see, 18 inches wide by 12 inches high. Each sign will mount to 2 aluminum T-posts. Now, when I say T-post, I don't want you to think of a barbed wire type T-post. These are solid aluminum in the shape of a T, obviously. Each post comes out of the ground about 36 inches and then leans back at a 30-degree angle for about 8 inches. And the sign itself mounts to that with 4 brass screws. Each one of those signs, as you see, has pictures of the building as it looked in some time in the past. Hopefully, we tried to get as early as pictures as we could find of it. And then some other pictures of it, how it looks in its current day status. Pardon me. And also some text describing the history of the site and or of the people who developed the site. Have any questions?
If you could just stick around, I'm sure we'll have a few.
Sir, Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. My question is, for some reason, I'm not seeing the agenda, seeing the support material for this particular item, but could you please share with me, sir, or share with us, this is a historical remembrance from the past, or is this, these businesses operational today? Just if you don't mind sharing, thank you.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Are these businesses active, like the grocery store, or?
Yes.
That photo you just brought?
Thank you. All 7 of those are active today. They go by names like the Cracked Mug in Cheetalish. They go by Helotes Gallery. Yes, all of them are active businesses today.
May I say something? I'm Cynthia Massey, and I live at 10547 Rockingham Trail. I think the question was, like the grocery store. No, it's no longer a grocery store. It's the Helotes Gallery.
Yes.
This is an interpretive sign, a historic sign from when it was first built. For example, the grocery store was built in the 1920s. And so that's the history of that. This is the second phase to a project that we've been working on. The first was the walking tour map. And maybe some of you have seen it when you go into Old Town. There's a little walking tour map. And people have come to the Historical Society asking for more information about, where the buildings are. And we have the buildings marked on the map, but they still wanted more information, and because the map could only put a little bit of information. So this became our second, and in fact, people said, you should have those interpretive signs that you have in historic districts. And that's what started this project.
Very nice.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
David, do you have any questions?
No, I didn't.
And you may have already said this, where is it going to be located? Is it near the entrance of the?
Good question. Each one of them has a designated location, and I think it's in the package, in the agenda. Is it not, Susan? It's in there. You can look at the actual location of the sign. We're limited in a number of different ways. Some of the operating businesses wanted the sign placed in various locations so as not to impede ingress, egress into their sites. So we were sensitive to their desires, and each one of those you can look at the exact location. It's usually marked in a black or a red or a white outline on your graphics there.
I know that for some of us, it didn't come out on our computer, so.
I'm having that problem. I can't see anything, so,
If you click on
yes.
Yeah, sure.
Right. It's not, it says error.
It's not working at all, that link.
But that's okay, he has photos.
But it's
here.
fine.
Pass it.
I appreciate the dialogue that we've been getting.
They look at like good locations.
The other items are reading fine. It's just this one particular item that's a little bit of a challenge.
Alex, you have any questions? Just a point of clarification. So this motion is being put forth by the Historical Society. This is not a state designation or anything like that?
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, if there are
They look great. They look great.
if there are no further questions, I would invite a motion.
I will move to approve the request by the Historical Society of Helotes for approval of the 7 signs identifying historical buildings in the Old Town Helotes Special District pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98 zoning, Section 98-72, Old Town Helotes Special District, subparagraph G7, creative sign review.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
No?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to item number 8 at 7:35. Discussion of an action on a request by Texas Grounds LLC for a specific use permit authorizing the use of an existing drive-through facility for a new coffee and bagel restaurant located at 9708 Business Parkway, Suite 128, Helotes, Texas. In the Texas Town Center, a multi-tenant shopping center on the property zone General Business District B3 and identified as BCAT property number 1189831. Is there any further comment from city staff?
No.
Are there any representatives from the applicant? Okay, come up and,
Didn't know I was going to be on mic. I could sing if you want.
please state your name
My name is Jennifer Howard,
and your address.
10419 Palmera Drive.
Um,
Do you have questions for me?
I have questions.
Sure.
Could you share, I mean, is that the building that, it's not a new build, it's a building that was previous restaurants, is that correct?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
There was already an existing drive-through there?
That is correct.
And are we utilizing the same signage? I know it's different name, but are you using the same areas where the signs were before for previous business owners, or are you asking for additional signage? If you could just share a little bit about that and also about your business.
Sure.
Thank you.
So you just showed the Texas Grounds Coffee Company in Old Town. That's our bakery. And we also roast our coffee every day. We have a bed and breakfast upstairs. So that's our love. And then we just took over this corner. It used to be Panthers Cafe. So they had a sign out front. So we just put our sign where that sign was. So there's no new signage or anything like that. And we decided on that location because it had a drive-through that was already there, and so we thought, yay, drive-through coffee. So we can also do blended drinks there too. And now we are also providing Boss Bagels from downtown, which are amazing.
Nice.
So
Is this a chain or is this just a one?
just us.
Very nice.
Yes. If you haven't been there, go. It's fun. Yeah,
So is the name going to be Texas Grounds Coffee? Is
that's
that-
correct.
okay.
Yes, it's a Texas Grounds Coffee Company. You give us like 10 years, we'll be all over the state. Don't you worry. But we'll be like, oh, we started here.
David, any questions?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
Anything else?
Mario, any questions? Okay, with no further questions, invite a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion. Let's see here. I'm looking for the agenda. Let me see. Hold on for a second. My bad. Let me see. Okay, here it is. Yeah, do you have it there for me, sir?
Number 8, second one from the bottom.
Request by Texas Grounds LLC for a specific use permit authorizing the use of an existing drive-through facility for a new coffee and bagel restaurant located at 9708 Business Parkway, Suite 128, Helotes, Texas, and the Helotes Town Center, a multi-tenant shopping center on property zone General Business District B3 and identified as BCAT property 1189831. Recommend to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by David. Any further discussion, gentlemen?
That's good.
Thank you.
Okay, so take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries for item number 8.
Who seconded?
David? Okay, on to item number 9, discussion of an action on a request by Texas Grounds for a menu board sign pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66 Signs, Section 6652 Miscellaneous Signs, Subsection B Menu Boards located at 9708 Business Parkway. So, going back up.
Do you want me to see my address again?
Sure.
10419 Palmyra Drive.
Okay.
So, Chairman,
Yeah, let's start at this side.
is this wall mounted,
Yes, sir.
internally lit?
Not at all.
Ann?
No, it's obviously compliant in every category, it looks like, and it's making me hungry. But yeah, that
66 every day.
Alex?
I don't have questions, thank you.
We're good. Thank you.
Just a brief question. I was not clear how far back the sign is set from the drive-through window, and is there any concern about the stacking? You know, people stop and look at the menu and then queuing up to go. Has that been, thought out of how far back it's going to be
Sure,
set?
great question. Well, we are super amazing and awesome and really humble. So when people get through when people go through the line, we like turn and burn super fast. The sign is right next to the window, so we'll also walk out and talk to people too in the line. Since it was previously a drive-through, there's plenty of room like along the wall, and then there's an entire back. It's a road that goes behind, so we wish it goes that far. Come on in. Yeah, see us tomorrow.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm thinking about I have a faded memory of that area, but the signage to direct you to the drive-through, is there that? And is it true you have to drive around that entire building to get to the back to enter your drive-through, or is there an easy access to get to your drive-through?
Great question. There is no drive-through signage, which we would love. Possibly that'll come later. But there's no signage to direct people to the drive-through except for the pylon sign that just says
Yes.
drive-through. But yes, people should go to the right and come all the way around. They can go this way and do a U-turn, but I don't recommend that just because there's roads driving school and 17-year-olds, so.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you shared that. Maybe that's something for follow-up with staff.
Yeah,
But yes, thank you.
sure.
Any further questions? I'd invite a motion.
I'd be more than glad to do the motion, but I'm handcuffed here because I don't have an agenda tonight because it's not loading up. So if I could, in fact, if staff doesn't mind sending us another hard copy of this would be great. This side of the room could appreciate that. What item? Item 9?
That's your last one there.
okay, is this,
Request by Texas Grounds LLC for a menu board sign pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66 Signs, Section 6652, Miscellaneous Signs, Subsection Menu Boards located at 9708 Business Parkway, Suite 128, Helotes, Texas 78023, and Helotes Town Center, a multi-tenant shopping center on property zone General Business District B3 and identified as BCAT property ID 1189831. Recommend to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Ann? Okay. Any further discussion, guys?
I just want to, again, thank the business owner for being here tonight and presenting, and also it's really nice to see a mom and pop business in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Great.
Yes.
Is the next one me too? Just kidding.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, on,
Mario, can I trade with you so I can put my notes?
Yes, I'm sorry, sir.
okay. Okay, on to the big one, item number 10. We understand the developer is asked to give a brief presentation on the subject.
Great. Hi, good evening. My name is Ashley Fairmont. I'm a local land use attorney here in San Antonio. I want to introduce our team really quickly. Oh, if you need my address, it's 10101 Reunion Place. We have Curtis Thigpen and Garrison Welch with Paravel Capital, who are doing the residential piece. We did present to you all back in June. We also have Adam Love and Joe Acock, who could speak to the retail and commercial portion of the project. And tonight, we also have Tom Carter from Pape Dawson Engineers, who's here to answer any engineering questions. I know there's been some things that have come up in the public comments. As you all know, we've been working on this for some time. We did present to you guys back in June an initial concept plan, which we've been refining since that presentation. But work on the site actually started before that. As was mentioned previously, the site is Zone B3 Commercial District. So right now, it could be an entirely commercial retail project. And that's what it was originally proposed. But Joe can speak to this a little bit further, but in looking at the intensity of that type of development, went back and looked at what if we added residential piece? And what does that do to the overall project? And so we've been working with Marion and Michael and their team on putting together the PUD ordinance, the planned unit development. And what that does is it actually provides certainty in this process. It gives us a written ordinance that we have to comply with. So the site plan you'll see tonight is what we are going to require to comply with ultimately with the development. So that plan, with the exception of the commercial, we are asking for some flexibility on the location and size of those buildings as tenants are coming to the site. We do need a little bit of flexibility in that. But everything else you see on the plan would be locked in. So that includes setbacks, buffering, residential units, impervious cover, which will be significantly less than a B3 retail zone, which was the previous slide. Also, significantly less traffic. That's something else that came up I do want to mention briefly, and we can go into more detail, but this project is required to comply with state and local requirements for stormwater drainage. We also have to comply with traffic and been working with TxDOT on ingress and egress into the site. So there is a lot of certainty that comes with this project versus a standard B3 zoning. And that's what we're hoping to bring to you tonight. You'll also see, I'm assuming in the agenda packet, the written ordinance, which we've been working closely with city staff on, that has all of the details that will actually be applicable to this project and give some, again, certainty to what will happen here. So with that, Joe, I'll let you take over on the commercial piece.
My name's Joe Acock. I specialize in the retail component of this project. My address is 200 Concord Plaza, San Antonio, Texas. We started this, and first of all, thanks for having us here and talk about our project. We do not take y'all's concerns lightly. We've been working on this project for almost a year, and when we first got introduced to this project, this is what we were going to do. I specialize in retail development throughout San Antonio and surrounding areas, and this is what I built. After going into this project for a while, we learned the history of some of the components and the opposition of doing something like this on this project. So we've spent the last 10 to 11 months meeting with the city and taking concerns very seriously into how to develop this piece of land, which is a very valuable piece of land.
Joe, can I interrupt you
Yes,
just a
ma'am.
second?
Well, can we just kind of
Oh,
hold
okay,
our comments till the end of the presentation?
Okay, but then they're to sit down, so you come back.
Yeah, come back. So originally, our plan was to go develop a full 31 acres for what its intended use is a commercial development, which we'd build box retail, pad sites, restaurants. But after hearing a lot of the opposition, we decided it would be easier, potentially easier and better for the community to downzone this. and bring in more residential and less commercial aspect to it. So what we've done is we've designed the site as best as we can. And we went back and forth a lot on, okay, Helotes does not want multifamily. So we try to stay away from multifamily. Helotes doesn't want big box retail. So we're trying to stay away from big box retail and develop something on the service retail side with restaurants and things like that that would really attribute to the community and not necessarily be opposed. On the residential component, I'll let Paravol Capital come up and talk about that. But the idea was Adam Love and I were working on this project together, and we decided to bring them in because they're not multifamily developers. They build these residential communities. They do a very good job at it. It is a very high-end product, and they've done well throughout many similar communities as Helotes. So that's how we got to where we are today. But we do hear you loud and clear. We don't take your concerns lightly. We've spent a lot of time coming up with this plan. Some of the attributes of how this plan lays out has a lot to do with the topography and how the storm drainage works. And I'll let the guys from Pape Dawson, who are a lot smarter than me, talk about how we've designed the detention ponds, what they are, and what we're doing to mitigate a lot of the environmental issues. So, but any questions on the commercial piece?
Are we going to ask now?
I think we'll just
Okay.
kind of.
Okay, you might have to come back.
I'll stand by close.
Hi, my name is Curtis Thigpen, 1509 Old West 38th Street, Austin, Texas. So we are part of the residential development, part of this development. And I won't go into all the detail on the site, but I'm going to provide a little bit of overview on the design behind the community and what our intentions are and how much time and effort and resources we put into revising this over the last 8 to 10 months in working with the city, listening to neighbors, meeting with neighbors in their homes, meeting with neighbors here. I'll try to address some of the concerns I heard, maybe not all of them, but from an impervious cover perspective in green space, right now as the site is designed, we have a total of 12 acres, 12 of the 31 or 31 and a half acres is impervious cover. And if we were to do the commercial development that you guys previously saw that we would not have to get zoning for, we wouldn't have to get variances for, that could be done today, it would have less than 6 acres of impervious cover. So there's a significant improvement and a much lesser intensity of development with what we're proposing. We do have these oversight, and can we go back to the just the main concept plan? Yeah. The majority of the property, we do have oversized buffers, and I do understand on, we'll call it page left or page west, there's a 25-foot setback, but we are committing to doing a 8-foot cedar privacy fence along that with more intense landscaping buffer, and also even working with our architects on design of those 6 buildings that are adjacent to that property line, to where upstairs units either have no windows or have just upper windows so that remains privacy and they're not overlooking the side yards, backyards of the adjacent neighbors. And so we're putting forth quite a bit of effort to, make compromises and understand and respect the privacy and the sentiment around from the city, from the neighbors, and the community. The property will be privately gated, both entrances into the residential. And as mentioned, the product that we're developing here is a higher end product. We're calling them, they're paired homes, essentially duplex buildings. There's about 18 to 20 detached single family homes that are part of it as well. And for the most part, those are situated around the perimeter of the property. So along Scenic Loop, and then on the page west side of the property are more single family detached buildings. On the exteriors, the design is more of a Texas Hill Country feel with native stone, as that was mentioned and brought up earlier, board and batten siding, pitched roofs, gridded windows. It is a high-end for rent residential unit. And to speak on that a little bit, I feel like the sentiment I kind of was hearing was the exclusivity and home ownership and keeping Helotes how it's always been. And we're very sensitive to that and understand that. However, our world has changed significantly, as we all know, not just in the past couple of years, past 10 years, but specifically in the past couple of years. And the cost to buy, own, and home today is up 70% year over year in the last 12 months. With appreciation and interest rate increases, it costs 70% more to buy a home and own a home than it did a year ago. And so, as developers of residential communities, we're trying to meet where there is demand, and there's demand for well-done, tasteful, for-rent communities that live and feel and function more like a home. They're not conventional 3-story, 4-story walk-up apartments. They're private entry, ground floor entry homes with yards and full amenities. And there's not a huge commitment. There's not a huge down payment. You're not paying property taxes. You're not paying insurance. You're not spending thousands of dollars a year on maintenance. It's all built into the rent that is significantly less than the cost of owning a home. And so there is great demand for this. No matter if you make $30,000 a year or $100,000 a year, the cost to own a home, I think we take it for granted, but it's gone up significantly. I think we heard some stuff about fire safety emergencies. The road designs, as mentioned, we are complying with all regulatory items that we need to. The roads, from a fire safety perspective, are either meet or exceed what is required. Parking amounts meet or exceed the amount of parking we need for the space. Same with detention, which our engineer can speak to a little bit. And I think that might be it for me. After this, we're happy to answer any additional questions, but tried to cover as much as we could that was addressed. Thank you. Tom, you want to talk to?
Okay. Want to start on this side, Alex?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Obviously, we've all heard the comments of the citizens. I recall when this was originally presented to us a few months ago, there were some questions that came up at that point, and I want to kind of go back to a few of those items and ask, if I could, some of the representatives what has been changed since the feedback was given both from the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the council. Obviously, density is a concern because it creates a lot of extra traffic in all directions. I know that while the city of Helotes does not have any zoning for multifamily residential, and I know while you can put residential in a B3 zone, it would have to comply with other density requirements, and so the PUD actually bypasses those requirements and allows for this to move forward. But I guess part of my question, well, I have a number of thoughts as I was writing down a lot of what the citizens were saying and my own thoughts on that. The entry and exit points to this haven't changed from what I can tell from the first presentation. There's still really only you get 230 residences with a potential for more than 400 vehicles, assuming that not all of them even have 2 vehicles. And the only ways in and out are one entrance off of the residential side, and then I guess it's three areas off into the commercial side. And so if you realize the direction of the traffic, someone coming from the residential area is not really going to go out onto Highway 16 because they're going to have to immediately do a U-turn or go way far down the road to do a U-turn, so they're all going to pile out on Scenic Loop. And I guess one of the questions is, and I know that Scenic Loop is a city street and not part of the development, but is there going to be any attempt to at least help with regard to the extra traffic that's going to result on scenic loop, because it is not going to be capable of handling that number of vehicles just pouring out at certain times a day. And/or what's going to happen is, as one of our citizens said, they're going to just start stacking up both in as well as, or dangerously trying to do U-turns and crossing a two-lane traffic, as we see happens all the time over by the Dairy Queen now. And accident after accident happens when people try to cross traffic unsafely. So I guess that's one question to consider, is what's going to happen to that. Also, it's a two-lane road, and so if the folks don't want to go through the retail outlet to get to their home, they're going to turn right onto Scenic Loop, and then they're going to stack up trying to turn left into the location, and that stacking up may very well actually go all the way to Bandera Road 2. So the location of the ingress and egress, the number, and that is concerning to me. Now, one of the presenters indicated that it's a gated area, and so gates have a tendency also to slow ingress and egress. And so will that be, are the gates that are going to be on the ingress over by Scenic Loop and on the map, the right-hand side, is that going to be, where will those gates be? Because if they're right at the road, then people can't turn in and click the gate from across the street, et cetera. We also know that QT is probably going in right across the street, and that's going to exacerbate this whole issue as well. So those are just a couple of the things on the ingress and egress that I'm concerned about. The same really if emergency equipment has to get in and out, they're going to be fighting those same traffic issues. As I was looking at the map, and maybe this is more, I guess, I don't know whether the gentleman who wants to work with the residential part or contributing with Joe Aycock there through commercial. I was trying to count the parking spaces, and it's very difficult when you're looking at it on a computer screen, or even worse when you're looking at it on something this size. But I'm trying to figure out where the 460 spaces are. Are some of those 460 spaces over by the restaurants? Because I did not count as many spaces in the residential section to support 460, or was I mistaken in that? Can somebody help me with that?
Yeah, on the residential, Curtis Thickman, Paravel Capital. On the residential, there's a combination of attached garages that you don't see on here because they're
Right, there were 40-something of those. Yes.
Attached garages. There's street parking. If you zoom in, you can probably see it. Those streets are 38 feet wide or so, and there's parking stalls along the street, and then there's tuck-in spaces on the sides of some of the buildings that would potentially have a carport over them that are basically right next to the residential unit.
And so the parking spaces that are within the residential section exceed that 460. Is that what the map says? That's what I was asking.
That's what it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
There's actually, I think, a little bit more.
I was concerned that what would happen is that part of the parking spaces over by the commercial side would be where some people had to park and go home at night because they didn't have enough spots, as many times is the case with a development this dense, is that people are circling the lots looking for a place to park, and somebody parked in the spot that they like to use, and so they're 2-3 blocks away trying to find a place. So and one of the questions I had asked originally when you came back last time was, will there be street parking to the point where it might get so crowded that emergency vehicles and people can't get in or out? And I was given the assurance that wouldn't be the case, and so I think that's still the case now, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'll address just on the ingress egress. I think there's this kind of misconception that everyone that lives in the apartment community leaves and comes back all the same time. But we have most developments like this, there's a requirement to have 2 ingress egress for apartment communities like this. We have 360 unit communities that have 2 entrances and exits, and they operate and function just fine. The gates would be further set back. They're not going to be on scenic loop to where if there's 2 cars, now someone's sticking out there. I can't give you that exact depth, but I think it far exceeds the realistic amount of cars that would stack up there.
I can add a couple things to that.
Great.
Just with that.
Sir, if you could state your name, please.
Tom Carter with Pitt Dawson Engineers, 3000 Northwest Loop 410. A couple of things just to understand. We do have regulations, and we will be back with a plat. and the traffic will be addressed with the plat when it comes in. But to the point, two drives to an apartment complex with over 125 units is pretty much the standard in most communities that we work in, and it works fine. And most of the time you see, 2 cars per minute or so in the peak hour leaving a complex, and a little bit less than that coming in the evening peak hour. A lot of the cars will come in off of the decel lane and go into the drive, through the commercial side. And then some of them will go up scenic loop, and you can't predict which way the drivers will go, but they'll find the easiest way to get home. TxDOT is super sensitive about Bandera Road and Highway 16. So we're showing extended deceleration lanes on both these drives. We fully expect that that's going to be a requirement at TxDOT. Used to be if it was only 50 peak hour trips, but now it's just pretty much any drive that we do. And there won't be, this does show that crossover. That crossover won't be allowed by TxDOT. They'll make sure that gets closed. So traffic will have to go down and do a turnaround and come back. And then I don't know exactly the future of the intersection of Scenic Loop and Highway 16, but I think TxDOT's looking at that being a super street type section, like they're building the rest of the way up the road. And so those are conversations we need to have before we come back with the plat.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I just had one comment, not a question, as much as I kind of feel a little bit unhappy with the fact that we have to be presented with something that we think of the better of two not so very nice things. So, and I'm not calling the presentation an unnice thing, but the location makes it very difficult for some of the issues that we've talked about. And so to be put in the position of saying, well, take this or else, doesn't feel good. Thank you for the time, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, just to follow up on what Alex said, I kind of feel like, yeah, it's presented like if you don't do this, this is the lesser of two evils. And of course, we don't want to look at it like that. But today, just to clarify, I think that only today, all we're addressing today is whether or not we recommend that this become a mixed use piece of property. So we're not here to sit here and, approve a plat or anything like that. This is a commercial piece of property, and we are trying to decide whether we should allow it to be mixed use, commercial and residential. And that's where all the complaints about that, all the concerns that are very genuine, and I have those same concerns. Today, we're just really to decide whether it's going to be zoned completely commercial or allow the mix. And I think that my first question is whether y'all have done another project that is very similar to this where you mix it, and where is it, and has it been successful, or is it something that can be looked at? I don't know which one of you to ask, but yeah, what is your experience with a kind of mixed use like this before?
So we're doing one project at Brook City Base right now, where we are paired up. We're different entities, but we're developing side by side. We're using two different architects, but that one is a 400 unit residential community just like this, and we're building it at the entryway of Brook City Base on the south side, right at South New Braunfels and Southeast Military. So that project is under construction right now. It's more of a town center. The whole idea of the mixed-use community is to have a walkability that interacts with the residential units. So we're building quite a bit of sidewalks, green space, pedestrian walkways into the residential units, and we've got groups like Pluckers, Bubba's 33, Outback Steakhouse, BJ's Brewhouse, and things like that going into the project. And then we're building another 65,000 square feet of service retail and restaurants that operate in conjunction with the residential units. Another project that we recently did, separate but similar, is over on Alamo Ranch Parkway with HEB, and then across from HEB, we built, it was 13 acres with HEB, and then we built across the street another 8 acres, and behind it they did a 23 acre residential project just like this. That project is a little bit different. This is going to be higher end. We were using quite a bit more masonry than that project there, but that was the bird song, and that was a similar footprint, but it's going to be this is going to have a little bit different look than that.
And so have you done any kind of studies about whether these rentals will be filled? I mean, I know you can't really predict that, but do you know what the price is going to be yet?
So I know that, and don't quote me on this because I was not a part of the residential and I shouldn't be speaking on that behalf, but I know that they underwrote $1.70 rents per month, and they achieved north of $2 a square foot, or $2 a square foot per month. So that's for high rents. This is a higher priced project, so our rents are going to be very similar to what somebody would be paying for a mortgage today. So that's the idea. It's bringing in a walkability in a mixed-use community that interacts very cohesively with the commercial component of it.
And have you addressed the concerns that people have about the oak trees? Are y'all trying to, leave those in place?
Absolutely. That does nothing to help our development, is to go tear down a bunch of beautiful trees.
So do you have them on your map
We
there?
have site planned around majority of them. On this one, I don't know where the tree preservation plan lays out on this. I know on the retail component of it, we are considering this conceptual due to the fact that there are several different users that will shift the different lots and lot lines for that. And when we do that, we will have a tree mitigation plan and a tree preservation plan that builds around these trees.
Is that something that you've discussed with the residents yet, or, can you give them some kind of guarantee on that, or? I think that's a huge concern for them. They'd like some assurance, is I think what the problem is too.
Sure. And I know that all I can say right now is that we will be building per code. Our intention is not to go tear down a bunch of heritage trees. The heritage trees add value to our project. They do not, when there's an opportunity, we do everything we can to build around them.
And concerning like drainage, I think a lot of people had concerns about that. This isn't just like another area where there's not a lot of wells, and it's different out here because we are on well water and there are a lot of concerns. And once the damage is done, it's done. So I think that just following the regulations doesn't comfort us, because we have to have some kind of assurance beyond that, because it's different here.
Sure.
And, I totally agree with the neighbors who are saying, Helotes doesn't want to be anywhere USA. We want to know that when we go to downtown Helotes and, historic, and you get a different feel. It's not like San Antonio, it's Helotes. And we feel like we're kind of losing that. And I think that having meetings with the communities and trying to make as many changes as possible. I was in some small Texas town and I was shocked at the Walgreens. It looked just like the town. It's possible to do that. And I just hope that y'all, take that in consideration and communicate as much as possible with the people as this project continues, because it'll be different steps that we'll be approaching, I'm sure. So I think that's all I have for now.
Okay, actually, if I could just ask, Gardo, can you comment at all on the tree preservation regulations that are going to come into play here?
So that would actually be the city arborist, but
Okay.
he is gonna hold them to a tree mitigation plan.
Okay, so I know we do have tree preservation as part of our city ordinances, and so they will have to comply with that as the project moves forward. Okay.
Chairman? Have we looked at the impact of the local schools? And will they be able to handle this? Because we also have a large apartment complex going in outside the city.
I do not believe we've done a study on the schools. No, not this time.
One thing to add to that is, from our kind of target demographic in our market studies, and we've done significant research and studies. I mean, we've spent to date a significant sum of money, and we don't just spend dollars just to spend dollars, and our time for the last year. And so we feel very confident in the demand for this product. And I think our target demographic is probably not families with young kids. We're not going to have a bunch of 3 and 4 bedroom homes here. There's a very, very small number of 3 bedrooms. And so while there will be some kids, the target demographic is not families with elementary school or middle school kids. So I think there's probably limited impact there. One thing I wanted to add as well, from a construction standpoint, something I didn't mention earlier, we are working with on another project and are in talks with, and hopefully going to be working with a GC, a general contractor on the site that is from Helotes, that lives in Helotes, that offices down the street and builds apartments, a very reputable group that, from what I understand, is very active in the community and a big supporter in the community in Franklin construction. And so it's just something I wanted to add as who we likely will be using to build the community.
Right.
Okay, I mean, I have questions. I guess I'm thinking out loud here, and I can ask for certain people, but my questions are, I mean, I'm just repeating what's been said this evening, basically, but I think that it is a concern. The environmental, I don't know if we've seen true environmental studies. I still don't feel like we saw them for the QT, and I know that's a different conversation, but I mean, you know, I think it's a very sensitive area, and I want to thank the community that was here tonight to share their thoughts. Again, it's just very nice to see when our community comes to share their thoughts with us here at the City of Helotes. But I think that having the I's dotted and the T's crossed is always a good thing when you're doing something like this, because this is a big, big pivot. This is a big change for our community. I truly believe that our community is the gateway to the Hill Country as we advertise it. And I think once you pass El Chap right there, welcome to the Hill Country, because that's what it is. And this here could work, but at the same time, there's a lot of unknowns. And I mean, the environment is concerning to me. I really believe that I worry about the trees. I worry about the you know, all the wildlife or the species out there. Has that been done? Has that been vetted? Those are thoughts that I have. The traffic impact. I've lived in Helotes for more than a decade now, and I can tell you the names of the people who've died up there because I've seen it. I was there at one of the traffic accidents. I was the first one there to one of them for a high school junior who passed away. So I'm not trying to get too emotional here, but what I'm trying to say is that the traffic impact for that area needs to be addressed. It really does. It's something that when we're going to bring in this amount of homes, it's going to change. It's a game changer for us. So I do believe that if we had all that and it was shared with the community, and I don't know, I think this is the right way to do it here, but I mean, I guess this is something I could share with staff at some point, or I don't know how that works, but like having a town hall that's just devoted to this topic, where we could hear everything and see all the information that's been addressed, and I think that would make me feel a little bit better about this. I think right now it's just like, I'm not trying to disrespect anyone in here, but for someone to say that, I probably shouldn't even say it. I don't want to disrespect nothing, but you can't assume anything. You can't guarantee that there's not going to be this when it comes to this type of work. So I do believe that I'll just say it, the environment, the traffic, the rental part. Why is it rentals? Why can't it be buy for homes? Are we past that? Is that a question for staff, or who's that for? Is it for the developer? Why can't they, if it is homes, why can't they be for buy homes? Why does it have to be rentals? That's the biggest question that's been floating in my mind all night long. And so those are my thoughts, but I do believe that that we do need to do our due diligence in making sure that we are addressing the impact that could have to the community, because that is a very special area. I heard a citizen tonight call it magical, and I totally agree with that word. But I do want to say also that that the part about the way the great Commissioner Ms. Ann just shared earlier about we are deciding tonight, should this be a commercial or allow this to be mixed with residential? And then where it says that take the option, take this or take the other. I mean, I found that a concern too when that was said. But I do know this, if it is zoned B3 right now and it's only commercial, then that's what it is. And bringing in the residential piece, I guess is being creative to try to bring that in. But my thought is, if we're having to decide it like that, then I don't know if we're good with the rental residentials. The property owners are out there are going to take a big hit on their properties when we have all those rental people out there. And I'm not disrespecting that audience. What I'm trying to say is that think about how many rentals we have in this community, and there's not very many, and the very few that we have, or the one or two, I don't know how many there are, but to put one there, I don't know if that's the right location. That's where I'm coming from, and I'm just sharing my thoughts. So I should have asked a question, but I see our great Miriam up here to address some questions, but I do appreciate sharing the thoughts. Go ahead.
I do want to address some of the concerns and questions y'all do have, especially more, them presenting the commercial, that is what it is. It's B3. And actually, as staff, that was a recommendation from staff, not from them, because we wanted commissioners to understand that this, if anyone, because we've had people interested in that site, that's what they want to plan to build. And they actually came to us with that. And when we spoke with them, we knew the concerns that citizens having a big commercial with that much lighting that's on 24/7, that has that much traffic with in and out constantly, not just in certain time periods. So we told them those concerns, and they came back and they looked at our code and they said, could we apply for a PUD? At that point, everyone can apply for anything at that point. What a PUD is basically an overlay of that. It doesn't rezone it. So if this project fails, then what happens that PUD, like if there was a concern with residents saying that, what if they go out of business or whatever. If it fails, then they cannot build, like someone else has to come back with another PUD for that. Otherwise, it goes back to a B3.
Or can I just ask, or presumably if they came back and asked to rezone it again, that could be, but it would have to come back through this process.
It does have to come back through this process, yes, sir. And any amendment to, it becomes an ordinance. So any amendment to that has to also come back. If they change the stuff that is written in the ordinance, there's a draft ordinance that's attached to this. It's a 15-page draft ordinance. If anything is changed there, it has to come back to both P&Z and council. So that is why it goes through this process. We did have kind of a town hall in May when we did it. We publicized it both in Nextdoor, we publicized it in all the social media, we put it on the website, we did it everywhere so that we could get input on it. Of course, they didn't have all the extra details that this had because they wanted to see if this is something that was feasible to come back to y'all. As for traffic impact and so forth, yes, it was deferred, but it will only be deferred to plating. So what they will do is they will work with the city engineer as well as TxDOT to ensure that it meets all of the TIA of any lane acceleration or deceleration requirements, driveways, expanding of roads, and so forth. All that has to be met. They do have two entrances, like you said, one on Bandera and one on Scenic Loop to get into the residential. One of the concerns y'all had was there wasn't a straight way from Bandera. They had to go around buildings. They're going to guarantee a straight way from Bandera into those apartment complexes. So because if you're going to go around buildings, we're not going to do, people won't do that. They'll go up the Scenic Loop. So that was one of the things. And that's why we placed that on there as well as signage. They will come back with a master sign plan. So that is in the ordinance. They will have to come back with a master sign plan so that there is conformity and all the signs do look. We also have in there all the height requirements, the setback requirements on the buffer zones, as well as the requirements of all the streets to ensure that the fire trucks, emergency trucks can get through there. The walkability with sidewalks, we also met with them about ensuring that there is park amenity space requirement, because a PUD requires there to be a park open space as well as residential and commercial. That's what our ordinance says is required on there. And then what we also, I'm trying to think of anything else that was, asked, that was, the drainage. So one of the things on the drainage, we did place on there that they have to meet all TCEQ as well as the stormwater requirements. So right now, yes, there's one detention pond, but let's say they do the study and there needs to be two, then that's going to be required. Okay, and then that would be required. And so at that point, there might be a reduction in the units or so forth to accommodate that, or but that drainage will have to be met. And our engineers wanted that language in there.
Since I had a couple questions for staff, so address them. So I think we've established that the ordinance does set forth these guidelines that they have to comply with, others to come back. In terms of the commercial part, there's punting and necessarily as part of the process. They don't have, they've got a restaurant pad, but they don't have a restaurant lined up necessarily to go there. And so what is the process moving forward for the commercial development? Does that come back before us as well?
Yeah, well, yes, on certain things. So there are certain things that would be required on there. So we have a list. So in B3, there's 179 schedule of uses that can be placed on that piece of property. A car wash, a gas station, a lot of other things that can be found there. We've narrowed it down to less than 75. So we narrowed it down to 75 because they presented it to be a more high-end usage. And so we narrowed all the stuff that did not qualify for high-end use, an animal shelter, another gas station right across from a gas station, and so forth like that. So that has been put down where these are the only, and then there's a list that out of those, there's several that have to come back to P&Z and to council for approval, such as driveways, restaurants with driveways, that has to come back to you all for approval, or you for recommendation approval.
I mean, is this conceptual? Is this giving them a green light for conceptual? They don't have to come back before us for conceptual approval?
Right, on the commercial aspect of it, yes, yeah, they have to meet the building designs that were listed on there, saying that how much is masonry, how much is stone, this is the material you're gonna use, that is listed within the ordinance. But where those actual buildings are going to be, they do not have to come back as per this PUD. And that's why you go majority of the time for that PUD, so that those things are allowed.
Okay. The next question was,
Did you have a question? Oh, go ahead.
Okay. A couple concerns have been brought up about the traffic stacking up on Scenic Loop. That is the city of Helotes Road. Has there been any discussion with staff about improvements to that? I guess that's on us to deal with that, or on us working with the developer to deal with that.
Right, and we would not know that. Yes, we're assuming there will be, but until the full TIA is done and it comes to plating, that's when that would be addressed. And of course, anything of the backup to Bandera, TxDOT will also look at that, because even though we own Scenic Loop, if they're turning into Scenic Loop from Bandera and there is a backup to Bandera, TxDOT will also look at that in conjunction with our engineer.
And this kind of segues into, as I was getting into this, I was reading through our master plan as well, and I think, I encourage anybody to look at that a little bit. There's a lot of stuff in there that does kind of allude to what they're trying to do here, which is good, although, obviously there's a great deal of concern. One of the things they did talk about was pedestrian connectivity, and obviously they've discussed that in great length inside the property. I would have a concern about pedestrian connectivity between this development and Old Town. There's a lot of pedestrians going across, on Scenic Loop, a lot of pedestrian traffic, a lot of bike traffic on that stretch. I personally ride that every Saturday. And with this many homes, I think catering to younger people, I think we'd expect to see potentially a lot of pedestrian traffic crossing that intersection, particularly at market days or, a good show at Floors. And is that something that we need to think about or consider, or what are our options looking at the TxDOT improvements?
That would be something, exactly, we'd have to consider and speak with TxDOT about as more development occurs on that side, wanting to come to Old Town. We don't own 16, we can't build upon that, we can't do anything there, but that would definitely be a discussion that have been looking at, staff has been looking at, especially with all the redevelopment on 16 and 1560.
And then I do have some questions. I think the civil engineer may be best to address those. So there were a number of concerns about the wells. Has been preliminary grading work been done? Have you guys looked into this at all about the potential impact?
So we've done some high-level grading plans, but not detailed grading plans. I don't think you're going to see massive cuts and fills on this site. The intent of the way that the layout is done, it's going to kind of work up the hill. There will be grading, but we're going to try to save trees where we can. So certainly through the middle of the property, there's a big band of trees. We'll try to keep that grading as minimal as possible. But we still need to drain it down into the basin. So there will be some grading on the site.
And is it going to wind up similar to the drainage patterns that are presently there?
Absolutely. We've got to maintain the overall drainage pattern. We can't divert water from one drainage area to another. And just to be clear, and I recognize the concern about the local wells around this, but this project will be served by saws for sewer and water. Just I know that's probably clear to everybody, but just to make sure everybody understands that.
That's all I had.
Any other questions? Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Ms. Mendoza.
Sure.
Thank you, Miriam. I was just thinking about what was said, just follow up. I know that we're being creative here by trying to, it's B3 out there zoned, and then we drop in the PUD to make it all work for this item that we're seeing tonight. But with that same mindset, and I mean, I'm just asking the question here, if we're being creative, and we know that piece of property or that area is going to be developed for growth of Helotes, and I don't know if this is the time to address this or when it is, but it relates to this, is why couldn't that be zoned or rezoned as a B3 overlay district, like inside Helotes, where you have businesses that are mindful towards the area? I'm reading this from the code of the city code of Helotes, and I see the definition for B3 overlay, and I'm just, because you can control the type of businesses
So you
that are out
can't
there.
do spot
Yes.
zoning. You can't go in there and do spot zoning, and a city cannot require a property owner to change the zoning, okay? So if they came to us and wanting to change it to a B3 overlay, that'd be different. No one's come to us and asked for that.
You're talking about the commercial property owners.
Right, whoever owns that property. So they, right now, if it's the developer, if it's the current owner, because they're still negotiating stuff, is that someone has to come to us and request that. The city cannot just go in there and rezone a piece of property.
So it's not the residential, it's going to be a business owner that's out there, because that's what we're looking at right
Yeah.
now. We're looking at B3.
That would be a business owner coming by, wanting to buy that land and wanting to rezone it a B3 overlay.
And what about existing business owners that are out there?
No, it has to be the owner of the property. It has to be who owns or who's going to develop on that property can change the zoning of a property. If you don't own the property, you can't change the zoning.
Yeah, it's just imagine you own a single family home and one of your neighbors doesn't like it. They could rezone your property ag. Only the property owner can rezone.
Yeah, so that's not allowed. No one can come and rezone someone else's property.
All right, well, my thought was, I'm just trying to figure out, we're trying to do something for this tonight by rezoning it, by
Well,
making
because it was a request.
Yes,
Someone
so-
came and requested it, and that's why. And so when there's a request, we have to present that, request out to P&Z and to council, because they've come to request that. And when we go through the public hearing process and everything else, but no one has come to request a B3 overlay.
Thank you for sharing.
Before you. Good. Now, did we address about having drive-throughs in these?
They'll have to come for a special use permit.
Because of how close they are to the residential.
Exactly. They have to come. It's a CC. That's one of the requirements that when we were going through all of the 179, staff worked with them, and there were certain ones that were pinpointed to have to come back to P&Z and council because of what the initial presentation was and what the look and to fit with our master plan. Like Jason said, our plan for the city in 2009 that was adopted talks about these kinds of developments in Helotes. And so when they came in, that's what we looked at and worked with that to make sure that it complies with the city's master plan. Any other questions?
Anybody? Just a brief comment, and mainly to some of my colleagues up here. A couple of us have expressed concern about, we're presented with the lesser of two evils. And I'm reminded that people wiser than me said that very often that is the role of government, is to negotiate what is the lesser of two evils. And so I kind of think, maybe that's the question before us, but I think it's valid, but, that's kind of our job.
I mean, I think a lot of us feel, especially if you live in Helotes, you came here because of the acreage that you get and the peaceful way of life. But someone once told me, you can't stop urban sprawl, and it is really hard to do that. And I agree that with a lot of rentals there, we're gonna have another community going on. But I think our job here is to try to make it fit the best way we can. And I do appreciate all of you listening to the people, and I hope you continue to do that and have regular conversations. But I appreciate what you said, that's true.
So if there are no further questions, I would invite a motion.
Mr. Vice Chairman. I'll make the motion. I recommend approval of the request by Killen Griffin Fairmont PLLC for a planned unit development establishing Bandera Ranch, a proposed mixed-use commercial and residential property on property zone General Business District 3, located at 15030 Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas.
Is there a second?
A second.
Is there any further discussion?
I'd like to say, again, I might be the lone vote tonight to say no to this, but this is just not the right place for this type of development. And I think if it's stated as commercial as it is, we just move forward with that. Putting rentals out there is not the way to go. I'm not going to support this.
Okay. All right, well, all in favor? Aye.
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 Ron?
Nay.
Aye.
No.
So it's 4 and 2, right?
Yes.
Do you need to make sure they're in the minutes, names?
Yeah, it's on it.
So that's not a quorum.
Is it-
It fails.
Yeah. So the motion fails. All right, sworn.
What did you?
The motion fails.
I was trying to hear what you were saying.
Sorry, the motion fails because it's not a quorum.
It's not a quorum.
It's 4 and 2, right?
We have a quorum, and you only count the votes present.
They only count the, oh, so it is a,
Majority of the votes cast.
so the motion does pass. Forgive me.
Yes, it's majority of the quorum.
Majority quorum.
Yeah.
My error. So the motion does pass. Okay. All right.
That's it.
Well, That concludes the items. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, we make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion carries at 8:35 PM.